Thank you for joining Land and Property Focus, a program which is to help us learn, have a discussion, and also be empowered when it comes to land and property issues in Ghana. Today, we are going to discuss site plans, and I tell you why it is important. The site plan is more important, arguably, than the legal documents that you have which accompany them, because they identify the property in question. They identify the subject matter. And that is why we need to make sure that we know what is on the site plan. And I have to give this caveat here. This program is not intended to make anybody an expert in land surveying, but is to give you information enough for you to be able to ask questions, for you to be able to actually know what you're getting, and then to keep the professionals, as it were, honest. Because if you know what they're doing and you do ask them the right questions, then they are able to give you a better service. I was going on to say, your site plan, for instance, there has been instances where somebody has been given a site plan, and that site plan was supposed to be a property in airport residential area. But when actually the site had to be plotted, the coordinates were somewhere in Senyabreku. So those things do happen. As well, if you do have a site plan and it so happens that it's been plotted wrongly, it may mean that whatever you think is your land is actually not your land, and somebody else might be on there, and there are a lot of issues that come out of that. So today we have with us Mr. Francis Osei Bonsu Kessie, who is a geomatics engineer. When I was university, they used to be called geodetic engineers, but you know, times have changed and they're now geomatic engineers. So he is going to help us go through the site plans and a lot of scenarios that come with it. And I guess at the end as well, we would have a conversation on some improvements which we can have on our site plans going forward. So Mr. Osei Bonsu Kessie, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Nana.
Okay, so I think as well, we have said in the past, I'll share my screen here, that on this program, we would try and educate the public about the laws that are relevant to the things that we are talking about. So at least when you're dealing with the professionals or you're dealing with a subject matter, you know exactly what the law says and what the remits are, because most often than not, that is lost in the conversation. So for the purposes of the practice of land surveying and also the matter of site plans, we do actually have the Survey Act 1962 as the primary act. That is Act 127. I must prompt you that the new Land Act, Land Act 2020, Act 1036, actually removes Section 11 of that act. So just in case you're reading that act and you are dwelling on Section 11, just know that it's no longer law. There is also what we call subsidiary legislation. So law that has been made as a result of the Survey Act, which is the Survey Supervision and Approval of Plans Regulations 1989, LI 1444. So if you do have any issues with a land surveyor or want to know what they can do and can't do, these are the laws that you have to have a look at. In due time, we would make it available on our website so that you have an easy point to refer to. So, Mr. Kessie, can you just educate us a little bit about the profession? What I think to the layman, when we say a surveyor, most often than not, it is somebody you meet on site and then you find some other person signing the document. And so the term surveyor is kind of used loosely. Who is a surveyor and how many classes are there, if there are?
Okay, thank you, Nana. There are types of surveyors. For this purpose, I think we will be dealing with land surveyors, right? Okay. So land surveyors are the type of surveyors that make precise measurements to determine property boundaries. Meaning, when you have a property, the land surveyor is the one who is going to determine the boundaries and bring it on paper as a plan. Also, land surveyors also do other things like mining surveys, road surveys, and end-of-year volumes for those in the mining sectors. So basically, that's what land surveyors do.
Okay, so I know, perhaps not through my own experiences, that we have, I think, technical surveyors, because it looks like the bosses don't go out onto the site. So the technical surveys are those who go on site and then they send it to other people to sign and all that. What I think that is more with land surveyors. Do you have two different people? And I guess what work does each group do?
Okay. Technician surveyors are surveyors that come out of the survey and mapping school, and they are also being employed by private individuals and the government, and they work as surveyors. They work as land surveyors. So the difference between the technician surveyor and then the graduate surveyor or the geomatic engineer is only the certificates they obtain from school. That's their background. So people from big universities like PNUST and UMatt graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Geomatic Engineering, and then those from the Survey and Mapping School come out with HND in Surveying and Mapping. So when they are employed, the graduates surveyors are known as the Geomatic Engineers or Assistant Geomatic Engineers, and they work hand in hand with the survey technicians.
Okay. So in terms of what I think we're going to discuss subsequently, would the technician surveyors be able to sign your plans as well as the geomatic engineers?
No, plans are only signed by licensed surveyors. Okay. So the geomatic engineers and the technician surveyors work for the licensed surveyors, and the licensed surveyors are the ones who sign the plans. So basically what happens is the geomatic engineers and land surveyors go to the field, and sometimes the licensed surveyors themselves, and pick the do the observations, and the licensed surveyor checks and goes through everything before he signs. So they work hand in hand, yes, and they work under the licensed surveyor.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have had the experience, and I think many people would bear with me on this, that when you go buying a piece of land, you go to the chiefs or the middlemen, whoever are involved, and then they get you a surveyor. I wouldn't know if those surveyors are technician surveyors or they are geomatic surveyors, but they are surveyors, or they are called surveyors. And after they do the site, they prepare the site plan, they normally give you an indenture as well, or a legal document that transfers the land. Now, I know for certain that drafting legal documents, especially to do with land, is a preserve of the lawyers under the Legal Professions Act. Is this something that is allowed for your either geomatic surveyors or technician surveyors to actually prepare legal documents?
No. Technically and legally, surveyors don't prepare land documents. And it can even be found in the Act 1036 of the Land Act 2020. It states that lawyers and legal reps are the ones who prepare the indentures, and where the surveyors can help in is when the schedule is being made. There's a part of the indenture known as the schedule, and they will need guidance from the surveyor because it has to do with the plan. So only legal representatives are allowed to make the documentation when it comes to the indenture, and they need help from the surveyors. Surveyors don't draft documents when it comes to land.
Okay, thank you very much for making this clear, because and I think this should go for everybody in terms of, because I have personally been horrified by documents that have been put forth by technical surveyors or geomatics, because I haven't asked them what their qualifications are, but they seem to be the people who the chiefs or the landowners trust to sell the land, and so they would most often get you the document. But I had one particular instance for a client where the land was being sold to two people, and there was nothing that recognizes whether they were joint tenants or tenants in common. And I wouldn't bore you with the details, but it is very risky if you're buying land and somebody is giving you legal documents which they themselves don't understand, because what is most likely going to happen is, in the future, you would have issues which you would struggle to actually go over just because you got it wrong at the beginning. And I know there's a bit of a kind of a reluctance to deal with lawyers in some of these issues, but you realize that if you don't take the right steps at the beginning, you may have to pay in the future to actually correct the mistakes that you would have made. So certainly, as Mr. Osei Bonsu Kessie has told us, do not take legal documents from surveyors because they are not qualified to draft those documents. So without much ado, I guess everybody wants to go into the meat of site plans. I would share my screen again, and we would have a look at site plans as I have come to know them. I think we do have certified site plans. So this is a certified site plan. Mr. Kessie, I would just reduce this a little bit. Can you briefly talk us through what is happening on this site plan?
Okay, thank you, Nana. This is a certified site plan, and the certified site plan is endorsed by a licensed surveyor, and it has various purposes. So it can be used for a search. If you want to acquire land, you need to conduct a search. So one purpose of this kind of site plan is to conduct a search at the Lands Commission. Also, it can be used to acquire if you have a property and you want to get amenities like electricity or water or telephone on your site, you can use these certified plans because the utility companies require these site plans for locational purposes.
Okay.
So what we have here, we have the name of the client on top, where you can see the 4. Yes, so 4, and then the name comes, and then shown edged pink. That means the parcel in question has been edged pink or red, from how we see it. Yes, and on the top left too, you can see the scale. That's the allowable scale for site plans.
Okay.
You can see the locality.
So, not to cut you short, is the scale always 1:2,500, or it does change depending on the size?
It does change depending on the size. Yes.
Okay.
So the bigger it is, that's the function of the scale.
Okay.
And then we have the locality, and then the district, and then the region itself. Also, you can see the area. That's the size of the plot in question. It's put in acres and hectares.
Okay. So in terms of your acres and hectares, are they rounded up or rounded down? Because I guess these are very clean figures. Are they?
Yes, they are rounded up into the decimal place.
So you tend to get a little bit more land for it than.
No, it's just rounded up to the 2 decimal figures. Yeah, like 2 decimal places.
All right. So I think we go down, and then this is the main, I guess, meat of it. So what is happening here?
Yes. From here, you can see the grid lines. And when I say grid lines, that's a 3200 north. And then the other one going east, that's the 1214. Those are the grid lines of the area. And also, you can see 2 lines getting the plot. One is the point of departure, and then one is also the point of closure. All these lines have bearings and distances that can be found on the plan. So you can see from SGGA, which shows the point of departure, and then 2 is the point of closure. So SGGA means Survey of Ghana, Greater Accra. That's what the initials stand for. And then the rest are the pillar numbers, and then the year the pillars were constructed. And then below it, you find the distance and the bearing of the lines as it joins the plot. So the plot also, with this one, we can see it has 4 corners, and they have 4 pillars on each corner. And they've been numbered 1 to LKRP1 to LKRP4. And on all these sides, you can see the bearings and angles and distances from each side.
Okay. So to the common man, I guess an explanation would be that moving from LKRP3 at the top to LKRP4 at the bottom. And I don't say you should try this at home, but I guess to a layman's mind, the angle of the line from the top coming down to the east is pretty much the 145 degrees that is being shown, and the length of that wall is the 100. There is a point which I guess you picked on, the north point. Most often than not, for those who want to have architects design your buildings for you, I think the north point helps as well. But
exactly.
So that there's one question which I have been asked, and that is these boxes that you find around the site plan. Now, if you go to different areas, so this is almost like a box with this in. If you go to different areas, the numbers don't seem to kind of correspond. Is there a reason why?
Yes, these numbers that are found on the grid lines are known as coordinates. Coordinates do change everywhere you go. So coordinates in Accra are different from coordinates in Kumasi, and coordinates in Kumasi are different from coordinates in Cape Coast. So coordinates, there's a specific coordinate for every area, so it can never be the same.
Okay, so then my follow-up question would be, would a surveyor from Waliwali who is used to the local coordinates in Waliwali be any useful working in Golokwati in the Volta region if the coordinates are different?
Yes, he can work there. The reason is the coordinates are generated by the instruments that are used for surveying.
Okay.
So once they are generated, it can give you the grid lines and your specific points.
Okay. So I guess we would subsequently go on to a plan, which is a layout, but we go to the bottom of this.
Yes, the descriptions. Yes. So on this site plan, you can see so and so and so, licensed surveyor, certified at blah, 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 blah. So it means this has been certified by JK, the line surveyor there, and he has stamped and signed with the date and the license number. And this is what makes this a certified plan.
Okay. So essentially, if anybody is looking for a plan which has been validated, the base of the validation is the certified plan. And that is where you have the licensed surveyor stamp on there.
Yes.
Even though, I guess, as you have told us previously, the points might have been picked up by somebody who is not a licensed surveyor.
Exactly.
Okay. So there is another type of plan which is called the certified and approved, as I understand it. And I think it would be good for you to go through that as well. I think the main difference, let's start from the bottom up, if we may. What is the difference between this plan and the one that we just saw?
Okay. This plan is also generally they're all called cadastral plans.
Yeah.
But for this one, it's known as a certified and approved plan. Certified and approved because it's been certified by a licensed surveyor and also approved by a representative of the director of survey. Okay. And a representative of the director of survey being the regional surveyor. So every region in Ghana has a regional surveyor. So depending on the region, they put their seal and then sign that one as well. So the difference is these plans are used further on for other landed purposes. For example, if you want to do your registration, the land title registration or deed registration, you have to get a certified and approved plan. That's the difference. That's the main difference.
So just to reiterate for our listeners, the certified plan you can use for your utilities, you can use for your searches, but to register your property with the land registry, you need to have a certified and approved plan.
Yes. Okay. This was brought about when the LI 1444 came up. So previously, you could have used only the certified plan for registration, but then things have changed. So this is what we use for land title registration now.
Okay, then. So I just wanted to. I think you have explained to us what these the from and to and what they mean. And I think yes, there's another question that has come to me. The distance between the corners of your site, or the points as I'm pointing up to 1 and 4, and wherever this is being taken from, which is your reference point. Does that influence the accuracy of the survey? So, for instance, if the reference point is maybe 2 kilometers away as opposed to 15 feet away, does that affect your survey and accuracy?
Yes. We have a regulator. That's the Lands Commission. So there's an acceptable range in which you can use a certain pillar of reference and a pillar of closure. Okay. So if you observe and the distance you get is more than the regulator's required distance, you cannot the plan cannot be approved.
Okay, all right. Yes. That gives me some comfort. So as well on this plan at the top, I think you've taken us through what is at the top here. We've talked about that before. We talked about a knot point and all that in the names. But in some modern plans that are made or recent plans, there's normally this box here. I see that on this one, there's a note. Can you please give us, if I have a site plan and it hasn't got that box with all those wonderful numbers in there, does that mean my site plan is not valid, or what is happening there? Because we don't have the same box in the first plan which we saw.
Okay, fine. If you would remember, the first plan had you could even see the distances and bearings on the plots in question, right? But this one, it's also another form of representation, a visual representation. Instead of writing or showing the distances and bearings on the plot, you can also prepare this plan data table and put it on top. It doesn't really change anything.
Okay, so it's just a matter of presentation.
Yes.
Okay, I just didn't want anybody to think that with this it meant that their land was not theirs anymore.
No, that's not.
So we've talked about certified plans and we've talked about certified and approved plans. Yeah. Now I'll go on to this, which is an uncertified plan.
Yes.
So with this, I guess my question is, because sometimes when there is a layout, which we would go on to, you would see where the roads lay. Now, as a surveyor, if you were supposed to pick this site in the middle of nowhere, how do you come by where the road is?
Okay, for roads, roads are normally shown by the land and town and country planning, like LUPSA. Now it's called Land Use and Special. What's it called? They have a new name now, right? Land Use and Special Planning. Blah, blah, blah. Those people are the ones that do layouts for a specific area. So they are the ones who show where roads and other amenities are supposed to be put on the whole area. What we do or how we work hand in hand with them is geomatic engineers or land surveyors do the boundary plan for them with the topographic features on it, and they with those features develop the area, and then after they bring it back to the land surveyors for them to do the staking out, or what we used to call setting out.
Okay, so I am a bit. I still think that, of course, we would go on to the layout plan, and perhaps I would say because under the provisions of the Constitution, which is a matter which we dealt with in our previous live show, you are not able to register land unless there's a layout scheme. So the land can refuse to register it. Now, if you have something like this, then clearly there's no layout scheme. It is somebody who's gone right into the bush, picked up the points and drawn it. And most often than not, you would have a road shown. Now, I have had instance personally where my family acquired a piece of land. There was a road to the front of the land, and so the development and everything was done as though the road was in front of the plot. Now, years down the line, the landowners decided that they were going to sell the plot in front of the house, which was a road and now becomes a plot. And therefore, you've already built your house, and the front of your building is looking at somebody's boys' quarters because the whole scheme has changed. And that is why I asked this question. And I guess it cannot be, it's a matter of policy because it is something that everybody does. But it may also explain why we have all the crooked roads and everything going. Because if you go into the middle of the forest and there is no layout scheme, and in fact, if there were a layout scheme, you wouldn't have had the need to actually go and pick points as you do because it's already there. You know, it would already have been marked out for you. But this plan is more to show us what an uncertified plan would look like. So it would have nothing on there. I guess I do not know if you have an idea for what these can be used for, maybe just for discussion purposes, you know, or for marketing or to show something. But unless you've got the certification and then the approval from the regional land survey, I presume that these can't be used at all.
Anything, yes, you can use this for anything.
Okay, so I go on to my next point where quite recently there is the concept of barcoding. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that what role that plays in the entire site plan land registering system?
Okay, the barcode is generally a security feature that has been implemented on the new site plans. And when I say security feature, I am trying to say it keeps all information from the owner to who signed the plan and when it was conducted and all the coordinates. So they make it in the form of a barcode and put it at the back of the plan so that in future, if you want to register your plot, there is no need for the official surveyors to go back to your plot to do any verification. The data they need to superimpose on the land title sheets are in the barcode. So when they are scanned, all the information, and then every licensed surveyor or any regional surveyor who signed the plan can be found in the barcode. Formerly, the quacks used to forge signatures of the surveyors. So one plan could be generated like 3 times for one registration, and it was causing a whole lot of problems. So now, if Nano Otu, the regional surveyor, signs this specific plan, it will be shown in the data that can be acquired by scanning the barcode. And these data are all stored in the cloud at the Lands Commission.
Okay. Thank you for the promotion. I noted that. So is this available everywhere? You know, wherever I go in Ghana, am I able to have the barcoding and obviously the advantages that it brings?
No, the barcoding was introduced not long ago, so it's under a pilot scheme, and it's only in the Greater Accra region and I think Greater Kumasi. So it's not in effect everywhere.
Okay.
Some parts of Ghana still use the certified and approved without the barcode.
Okay.
Yes, very soon, if they check the process of the pilot and it's okay, I think they might embed them there.
Okay. So move on to a layout plan. I think you have previously in discussing the other site plans talked about layout. And I did mention about the fact that the Constitution, by its provisions, actually require that before you buy a piece of land, it should have a layout scheme. And it's not something that I can pin on a geomatic surveyor because it's more a planning question that the local planning authority or in the district or municipal assembly should have zoned out the area and laid it out just as we're seeing in front of us, so that you go in and they give you a plot number, it's all been done. But the reality is that it doesn't happen. But if you go to the Lands Commission to register your land without a scheme like this, and they take a long time to come back to you, or it doesn't really proceed, then you may understand that it is because there is no scheme like this.
Yes, the particular area. Yeah.
Especially if it's two land. Two land specifically come under this regime. If you're buying from an individual, then perhaps you don't have that problem. But you have to. It is not just because you're buying from an individual. You must look at an individual who has allodial title or original title, not just somebody bought from a stool.
Who's from them? Exactly.
So that's with the layout. Then we've got. It never occurred to me up until preparing for this program that we had site plans specific to flats. But that is also very important in real estate, being that, especially looking at your cantonments and airport residential flats that are coming up. So it caught my attention, and I did ask Mr. Kessie to take us through. Beside all the certifications, which are fine, I guess we have to look at, what a typical Ghanaian flat plan would look like, just so that viewers are aware. So, Mr. Kessie, if you can, what is happening here?
Yeah, this is known as a strata plan.
Okay.
This type of plan shows the lot numbers and the allocations to occupants of the flats.
Okay.
This is this usually shows the floor number and then the specific flat number. So it's usually done in hand with the architects with the architectural block drawings, and then this can be obtained. So from what we can see, it shows the floor number and then the lot number. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think there's a further point that I would want to make on flats and easements, and I think something which, as a country, we would have to consider going forward, because it doesn't appear that there's enough detail on the plan. So in this case, you've got this red box here, and then you've got that red box there. It doesn't actually show the site within which this is built, and doesn't also show your easements and your rights. And I know sometimes we look at these things and say, oh, it's not going to be an issue, but it can be an issue as to where your rights of access, easement, parking, and all that is. But we'll discuss that further down the line when we have other plans. So another point which I think we discussed was, now the site plans obviously have a point where they merge into a legal agreement. So we have explained what happens on the site plan. Those things must find themselves somehow in your legal documents to make your legal documents acknowledge the site plan, and also to make the site plan represent the information of your property. So this is just a site plan, the first site plan that we used, which we have blown up to show how your normal site would be described in your legal document. And it might be too much for you, but it is worth understanding these. Because if, for instance, the side of your property is 100 feet and then it's recorded as 20 feet or 10 feet, all those things can bring, conflict further down the line. So, Mr. Kessie, can you talk us through what is happening briefly on here?
Okay. Briefly, as you can see, this is a schedule, right? And the schedule is part of the land documents we normally call the indenture.
Okay.
From this is like a written representation of the plan data in addition with the plan. So here it shows the name, the location of the plot, and then the commencing pillar, that is the point of departure, which is the SGE B439/191. So it joins the plot with a bearing of 343 degrees and 34 minutes and a distance of 18,373.65 feet. Now, from that, it goes down to show the distances and bearings between pillars 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you go further down, you can see all that from each pillar, and it shows the distances between each side. So if you know your plot very well, and the lawyer is drafting, and this is why I was saying the lawyers will need the surveyors when it comes to the documentation process. This is the only part they need the surveyors, because they went to the ground to observe the points and brought about all these figures. So it essentially shows the distances and bearings of your plot. So if you know your plot very well and this document is given to you, you would know whether it is a true representation of what is on the ground that has been brought on the paper.
Okay, that's very helpful. I think for viewers, you can see we've tried to match the colors with the walls and the boundaries, so you can
The
follow.
boundaries, yes.
Watch
So,
this subsequently. Yes. I go on to equipment. Now, I have seen quite a range of equipment, and just quickly, if I went on my site now and I employed the services of a surveyor, which of these instruments would you think I should see? Because I think a lot of this is about education, is about people actually knowing what is right, so that if you have, as you mentioned, the quacks in the system, you can pick them out by perhaps the instruments that they bring on site. So can you talk to us briefly about these?
Okay. On the left side, that's the yellow equipment with something like a remote control by it. That is known as the RTK GPS. Normally, this is used for topographic survey and boundary survey as well.
Yeah.
If you're only asking the surveyor for your site plan, you would probably see this.
Okay.
Which
is that one?
Of your plot, yes, the yellow one. It is used to observe the corners of your plot, and the data is extracted from it. Also, you can see in the middle, that's a leveling instrument. That one is used to determine heights of a particular point on the ground. So for site plans, normally you don't need the dumpy level.
Okay.
And then on the lower left, you can see the green one.
Yeah.
Known as a total station. You only find this on your plot if you've, let's say you are going to acquire a land and the surveyor needs to do a demarcation for you. So let's say a big area and the surveyor is supposed to give you 2 or 4 plots. He's going to use the total station to do the setting out or the stakeout. So that one, with the setting out or stakeout, you're going to see the total station on the site. And then on the top right is the drones. And these drones they are not used for site plans, but they are used for bigger topographic surveys. And initially they were known as photogrammetry. They were done by airplanes, but now in this our modern world, we use these equipments and it has made them easier.
You have made me remember my land economy photogrammetry course through the Department of Surveying, which was very interesting, looking at pictures, shadows, and to read landscape. Okay, thank you very much for taking us through the equipment. I guess the yellow one is what will most likely be seen, and so if people are watching, that is what you have to look out for. Depending on other uses, you may need the others. So I have another question, and I think we're hard pressed for time to get our questions in. But I had the question as to where one should build their wall on their site. Now it appears to me that's too big. So we have so the corner of the plot is here. So we've got the scenario in A, the scenario in B, the scenario in C. The scenario in A has the wall on the outside. The scenario in B has the wall, has the point at the corner pretty much to the middle of the wall. And then the scenario in C has the wall inside of the points. Now, the question is, if I have a site now, where do I build my wall?
Okay. Okay. From the points we can see on the screen, If you decide to build your wall using point A, you're going to go outside your boundary and you might step into someone's boundary, or maybe if there's a road, you're going to like go out of your boundary.
Yeah.
And then with the B, if you decide to build directly your wall on the line, you might also go into someone's plot partially, which can also cause a conflict. But then with the C, you will remain in your space. So you are supposed to go for C. You're supposed to build your plot inside your boundary in order to avoid any future conflicts.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for that. We go on to, I think this is one question which I would want to put to you in terms of what our practice is. So you can see from this plan here that Johnson's Close has got the building in question, because this is attached to illegal. The building in question is shaded, and then you have the easement right up to the public road, which is there, is also shaded. It is one thing that we don't appear to do on our site plans. And with the example that I've given you of my family property where the road was changed, is it something that you think is good for us to do in terms of making sure that the roads that are shown on the plans are actually roads that are also referred in the legal documents, perhaps by description, so that nobody can actually give you a demarcated road and then 10 years down the line come and say, oh no, well, I'm selling the plot, and then you have the problem which my family had. And then as well, there is also the concept of T marks, which I think we don't do, but we have a lot of conflicts, sometimes petty, sometimes, with good reason, because we don't have some of these things on our layout plans. So you see here that all these boundaries have what we call T marks. Now, the T marks point to who is responsible for the boundary.
Okay.
Number 62 here is responsible for the left boundary, and number 64 is responsible for the left boundary. It goes on like that. And then the road at the back, they also have responsibility for the boundary. Now, I have I have superimposed that on a Ghanaian plan, which would make us. There's also the H marks.
So just like the layout. Okay.
Yes, the H marks is for where the boundary is shared. So when you look at this layout scheme, you've got the T mark, or I've just superimposed marks on, showing who is responsible for which boundary.
For that boundary, yes.
I've missed out 186, so perhaps they don't have any responsibility. But anyway, and then the shared boundaries between them is an H mark.
H mark, okay.
Then both. I think as professionals, we have to perhaps have some of these discussions and put some of these because it proves conflict. It is mentioned in the legal agreement. You know which boundary is yours. You know which boundary is shared, and so it doesn't come into question as to who builds what. And then I've done kind of this. If people do know Trade Fair site a little bit, this lot I think is a big shop. So essentially, our plans should show where the easement is right up to the road. It means then that, just as the example I've given, nobody can come years down the line and say, you know what, well, this land was given to me, and then block it up, as happens. Now, but years down the line, because they are private roads, they could very well be taken over because you don't have the right to go over them. So what is your thought on that?
Well, from what you just explained, I think it's very useful because it's going to help our system to reduce conflicts. Because generally, most of the time, conflicts come about, and if you go on the site to do surveys for what's it called? If there's a dispute service, right? You go and you find out it is just minimal, like millimeters or say, and it really causes disputes. So I think this thing you're talking about should also be done here in Ghana so that conflicts can be reduced when registration process is going on. It's a very laudable idea.
Yeah, Okay, then. So I think I've taken you through all the site plans. So we'll come back to the studio, and then essentially, what are the errors that can occur when you're doing your work?
Okay, during surveying, I can say there are human errors, and then there are also errors caused by the equipment, right? So for the human errors, I can explain. Definitely, if you are doing a site plan, you need to use your get coordinates for your point of departure and your point of closure. So you need to enter the coordinates of the point of departure before you can start your GPS on it. So the human error comes up when entering the point of departure coordinates and then you make a mistake with the coordinate numbers. That can cause a huge error when you are plotting. So that is the human error. And then when it comes to the equipment or machine error, calibration purposes, maybe the machine has not been calibrated for a long time. So its functions are not going to, it's not going to give you accuracy. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think my last question, perhaps before we open for questions, be what do I do if there's an error? I guess I may not find out because I am not trained in these. If I do find out, for instance, that there is an error, what do I do?
As in you, the client or the surveyor, like
Yes, the client.
okay. So basically, errors are now kind of minimal due to the kind of machines we use, right? So if you, the surveyor, is working, most of the time we process our observations with post-processing softwares. And in the process of doing that, it alerts us if there are blunders.
Okay.
When you start seeing these blunders, you just need to go according to the standards. There are standards in surveying, right? So you have to go according to the standards. And after processing and everything, if you see your acceptable misclose or whatever is not in accordance with the acceptable one, you need to go back to the site and observe again and then come and process. That's the standard of work.
So essentially, you need to go to a surveyor who knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we've had a very fruitful discussion, and I hope that those who are watching us have also taken some sort of knowledge from this. I would go to the comments that we've had. So I have got Kingsley Amprechum saying must site plans be signed by the traditional authority who own the land. Traditional authority, so Nene Kwame Wusi, do they sign the land?
No, they don't. They don't. Those are the Aloida owners. Those are the ones that give the land out to their clients to buy. Those they only sign the indenture, but they don't sign the site plan. The site plan can only be signed by the licensed surveyor or a representative for the director of survey.
Okay.
Not sign site plans, but they sign in the indenture as Aloida owners or witnesses.
Okay. I guess it might be that in some areas, some of the owners may want to just sign to make sure that they themselves have approved, because I guess they would also have their own database in their own offices of what they are selling. So it's just a matter of maybe counter checking it. But legally, Mr. Amprechum, those are not required. That is what
you're not supposed to sign the site plans. No.
Mr. Amprechum is also asking if he had, say, 10 plots, if he had a right to wall them together, if he would block access to others. Well, I think this is more of a property surveying question. It is yours, and you should be able to wall it. But what you must realize, and this speaks to the point of there being a layout plan. If there was a layout plan or a layout scheme, then it wouldn't be a problem because the roads and everything is demarcated. But at this point, if you have 10 plots and there's no road crossing those plots, and then it so happens that you want to wall it, then you have a right to wall it. But I presume that if it's going to block other people in, it may come up to be discussed at some point. But you've been sold land, and to the extent that you've been sold that land and you have your boundaries, you should be able to wall it, and I guess take the issues from there. The next question. My site plan is missing. Is there any way I can get one? Otu Kessie can get a duplicate copy.
Yes, normally site plans are, you don't just do one copy of a site plan. Legally, site plans come in 4 copies. So definitely there should be, and the surveyors keep copies of the site plan. So definitely if he should contact the surveyors who signed for her or did it for her, I'm sure she can get a copy of it.
Would she have to pay again, or that was a free copy?
It's a copy, so I don't think she would need to pay.
Okay, all right then. So I go to Mr. Edmond Jando. What is a boundary plan, and can you show what a boundary plan looks like?
Okay, a boundary plan is a type of plan that shows the boundaries of the land in question. So normally they come with a prefix of the names of the pillars. Yeah. After you observe, after you do your observation, you plant pillars on the boundaries to show the locations of it.
Okay. So I guess I do not know if this answers Mr. Jando's question, but I guess when we are talking about boundary disputes and all that, these feed into it, getting the boundary plans. And it does appear to me the world over that land registries don't actually guarantee your boundaries, because it's so difficult to actually guarantee geographical points. They would accept the plans, and when there's disputes, they would get a boundary surveyor to actually go and delineate the points. But that is just further information. So Sika Antonio says, I'm making notes or learning loads. Thank you for the knowledge from your wealth of experience. Thank you too for watching. And then, yes, those are the questions we've had so far. So, we still have a bit of time, checking if we've got some more questions. So are there different kinds of indentures? Kindly highlight on this. Well, Mr. Albert Kwashi, it depends on what you are looking at. Definitely, you have different interests in land. The 2 main differences being your leasehold and your freehold. So those would differ. This program, unfortunately, is just specifically about the site plans. But yes, there are different documents, and I think for our next 2 live shows would actually be looking at these documents, what they actually cover, what's in them, what they mean, why you should take what, and why you should not accept some clauses, or what points you can negotiate, and how that would be. So just make sure that you follow us on Facebook and you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll definitely be updated when that comes along. Leslie Nico says, cha. And then Kingsley Amprechum again. I can see a blue and white copy of site plans. Can you explain the difference in colors? I can see a blue and white copy of site plans. Can you explain the difference? I do not know if this.
I think he's talking about the layout.
The layout. Okay.
Because I think that's what's blue and white.
Oh, okay. So I guess the layout plan that I got, as we say, it's a very old one. It's a type of plan, and I think in those days they used to use copies and stuff to
carbon copy papers. Yeah.
Yes, carbon copies, and so the colors, but the colors have no bearing on the information of the plan. I have a question from Leslie Nico again. Is it mandatory to have an indenture before building? Well, if you don't have an indenture or a legal agreement of the sort, then technically you can't.
Yes, you don't own the land. Yeah.
So ideally, you must have your legal document in place, with all your site plan and everything. Getting the building permit is a matter of what the scheme is and if it accords to the layout scheme. So you might have a piece of land which is zoned as industrial. If you decide to go and build, say, a hospital or a school, it might be objected to. So those are the issues that you deal with when you're going for building permits. But you definitely would want to own the land before you actually proceed to make such applications.
Okay.
Kia Kessie says, is a site plan enough evidence to prove one's ownership of land? That's a big question. In our side of town, I guess in some instances, all you have is a site plan. I have dealt with people who, for instance, in the Ashanti region primarily, just have receipts for their land. They just get allocated a plot. So you have the layout and you just have plot number 65 and that's all you're given. And there's nothing and there's no conflict. It's accepted. I mean, this particular piece of land was in Ashanti Mampo and there was no document accompanying it. So to that extent, I could very well, or I could safely say, you might have a site plan and that would be good enough to show your ownership. But ideally, you must push it further and get a legal document, because I always say the importance of contracts and agreements is because the people you're dealing with today may not be there tomorrow.
Exactly.
You might be dealing with Mr. Kessie today who says he's selling you his land, and then you think, oh, he tells you, well, the site plan is just enough. Just go ahead and do whatever you want. If Mr. Kessie decides to go and live in China tomorrow and not come back, and then his family come to say, well, he never sold it to you, or he didn't have a right, or whatever, you are left on your own. So it's always a good advice to make sure that you complete, get a document in your hand. And indeed, you have to follow it through to go to the land commission to actually register it. Then at least you would have some comfort that everything is going according to plan, and nobody will turn up tomorrow to take it off you. And you as a person as well might pass it on to somebody else. And if all you're passing on to them is a site plan, they have nowhere to go. They might not find Mr. Kessie to go and, get a document at the time when you pass it on to them. So it is very important that even though the site plan may be acceptable in places, it is very important that you go further to get the legal documents. I think that is about, okay, Mr. Kessie.
Yeah.
Are there standard charges that land surveyors charge? So I want somebody to survey my plot, which is an acre. Is there a standard charge, or, if I know him and I can buy him some coffee brokeman, it means that I get a reduction? What is it like? How would people be confident that whatever they are being charged is actually something that reflects a very benchmarked figure?
Okay, when it comes to charges, our mother institution, that's the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, the GHIS, has a charge chart that is used, and it is done according to the size of the plot. So every surveyor has it, and that is what they go by.
Okay. So with
that, surveyors might, let's say, depending on the circumstance of the land or where it is and other factors, they might decide to, let's say, make the cost a bit out of the one the mother body provides. But generally, they are supposed to charge according to the scale of fees.
Okay, thank you. I think we will take this as our last question. This is from Jackie Noi Sacramento on YouTube. And the question is, after acquiring the site plan, are you required to have it stamped in court prior to registration? Is this a prerequisite?
Yes. If, like we spoke about earlier, when the lawyers are preparing the documents for you, they take it to the law courts for stamping to be done. So that's when the registration is in progress. So when you start registering, it will definitely go to the law courts to be stamped.
Okay, so the stamping is a function of the legal part of the process.
Yes, of the process. Yes,
part of the process.
exactly.
Mr. Kessie, I think when time is well spent, it actually flies by. Thank you very much today for joining us and sharing with us your professional experiences. I hope that people who have watched us today have actually learned something. Those who have joined us in the discussion, I hope you've had the answers that you're looking for. And I hope that we're all empowered by the knowledge of these things. I would reiterate that this is not to make anybody a professional, but to make us all know enough to be able to ask questions and to hold our professionals accountable, because most often than not, we do not do that, and we tend to pay dearly in the years ahead. Land and Property Focus would keep bringing you such informative topics. We would want you to join, like our Facebook page, share with your friends. We would also want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you do have any topics that you want us to cover, it might be your personal problem. We can anonymize it and then do a show so that everybody else would learn from the issues that you may be having. Or if you just want us to send us some information for us to give you some advice, by all means, do send it to us through info@landpropertyfocus.com. And that website in due time would also have a lot of information for you to go to and help you and everyone to be educated about land property issues in Ghana. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I hope that you have actually enjoyed the show and you would actually keep the dial on. Make sure that you're always with us when we have our shows, and we hope that we all would benefit from this. Thank you once again.
Thank you.